Captain Zethara sat in her command chair, her blue skin glowing softly in the dim light of the bridge. The Starweaver had been traveling through empty space for 3 weeks now, searching for new worlds to add to the galactic maps. Her crew was getting restless, but that was normal on long survey missions. The silence broke when her sensor officer, Krindal, suddenly straightened up at his station. His 4 eyes widened as he stared at his screen. "Captain," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "I'm picking up something strange." Zethara turned her chair toward him. "What kind of strange?" "There's a ship out there. Unknown design, it's just drifting." The bridge went quiet. Finding unknown ships in deep space was rare. Most of the time it meant trouble. "How far?" Zethara asked. "About 2 million kilometers. It's small, maybe 1/10 our size." Zethara stood up and walked over to Krindal's station. The screen showed a rough outline of the mystery ship. It looked crude, like someone had built it in a hurry with whatever materials they could find. "Any signs of life?" she asked. Krindal ran more scans. His face grew pale. "Yes, Captain, there are life forms aboard. But that's not the strangest part." "Go on." "The ship's design, it doesn't match anything in our database. But I managed to trace its origin point." He paused, looking nervous. "It came from a world called Earth." The name meant nothing to Zethara at first. Then she remembered. "Earth? Isn't that one of those Class 15 worlds?" "Yes, Captain. Class 15. Deathworld. The reports say it's completely impossible for life to exist there." Zethara felt a chill run down her spine. Class 15 Deathworlds were the worst kind of planets in the galaxy. Extreme weather, deadly creatures, poisonous air, and natural disasters that could wipe out entire civilizations. No known species could survive on such a world, let alone build spaceships. "Are you certain about the readings?" she asked. "I've checked 3 times. The ship definitely came from Earth, and there are definitely living beings inside." First Officer Yemtai approached them, having overheard the conversation. "Captain, this could be dangerous. If something survived on a Class 15 world, we have no idea what we're dealing with." Zethara nodded slowly. Yemtai was right to be cautious, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. In all her years exploring space, she had never encountered anything like this. "Bring us closer," she ordered, "but keep our shields up and weapons ready." The Starweaver moved toward the unknown ship. As they got closer, the details became clearer. The ship was indeed crude by galactic standards. It used simple fusion engines that were centuries behind current technology. Its hull was made of basic metals that most species had stopped using long ago. "It's like looking at something from the Dark Ages," Krindal muttered. Communications Officer Norabeth spoke up from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting some kind of signal from the ship. It's very basic, but it seems to be trying to communicate." "Can you understand it?" "I'm working on it now." Norabeth's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "It appears to be mathematical sequences, very simple ones. Like a greeting." Zethara thought for a moment. Mathematical greetings were common in first contact situations. Most species used them because math was universal. But the idea that beings from a Class 15 Deathworld knew about first contact protocols was unsettling. "Send back a basic response," she decided. "Let them know we're here." Norabeth worked for several minutes, then sent a simple mathematical sequence back to the unknown ship. The response came almost immediately. "Captain," Norabeth said, her voice filled with surprise. "They're responding in galactic standard, basic level, but understandable." "What are they saying?" Norabeth listened to her headset, then looked up with wide eyes. "They say, 'Hello out there. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel New Horizon. We've been hoping to meet some neighbors.'" The bridge fell silent again. The casual, friendly tone of the message was not what anyone had expected from beings who had survived the impossible. "Neighbors?" Yemtai repeated. "They're treating this like a social visit." Dr. Velnara, the ship's science officer, had been quietly running scans during the conversation. She finally spoke up. "Captain, I've been analyzing the life forms on that ship. The readings are disturbing." "How so?" Their bone density is 3 times higher than any known species. Their muscle structure suggests they're built for extreme physical stress. And their brain activity patterns, they're unlike anything I've ever seen. Zathara felt her unease growing. Are they dangerous? I don't know. But everything about their biology suggests they evolved in an extremely hostile environment. Their bodies are designed for survival, under conditions that would kill most of us instantly. The communication system crackled again. Jake Morrison's voice came through clearly. Is anyone there? We'd really like to talk. We've been traveling for months, and you're the first other ship we've found. Zathara looked around at her crew. Fear and curiosity warred in their faces. These beings from Earth seemed friendly enough, but they came from a world that should have been impossible to survive. Captain, Norabeth said quietly. They're asking if they can come aboard. The request sent a wave of panic through the bridge crew. Inviting unknown aliens onto their ship was dangerous enough. Inviting beings from a Class 15 Deathworld seemed like suicide. But Jake Morrison's voice had sounded so genuinely friendly, so hopeful. Zathara found herself wanting to believe that these impossible beings might be peaceful. Tell them we need time to prepare, she said finally. But yes, we'll arrange a meeting. As Norabeth sent the message, Zathara wondered what she had just agreed to. In a few hours, she would come face to face with beings who had achieved the impossible. They had not only survived on a world that should have killed them, but had built ships and traveled to the stars. The question that worried her most was simple. What kind of creatures could thrive in hell and still sound so cheerful about meeting strangers? 3 hours later, Captain Zathara stood in Docking Bay 7, watching her crew make final preparations. Security teams had set up force fields and weapon emplacements around the meeting area. Dr. Velnara held her medical scanner ready, while Krindal monitored his sensors for any sign of danger. Are you sure about this, Captain? Yemtai asked for the 3rd time. We still don't know what we're dealing with. The scans show only 3 life forms coming aboard. Zathara replied. If they wanted to harm us, they would have sent more. Dr. Velnara looked up from her readings. Captain, I've been studying their biology more closely. These humans are built like living weapons. Their reaction times are faster than our security. Systems can track, but they haven't shown any hostile behavior, Norabeth pointed out. Every message has been polite and friendly. That might make them more dangerous, Yemtai muttered. Predators often appear harmless before they strike. The docking bay's outer doors opened with a soft hiss. A small shuttlecraft entered, moving slowly and carefully. It was as crude as the main ship, but it flew smoothly. Whoever was piloting it knew what they were doing. The shuttle landed gently on the deck. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then a door opened on the side of the craft. The first human to step out was tall and broad-shouldered. He had short brown hair and kind eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. Despite the heavy gravity and strange atmosphere of the ship, he moved easily, like he was comfortable anywhere. That must be Jake Morrison, Norabeth whispered. Behind him came a woman with blonde hair tied back in a simple style. She carried what looked like a communication device and smiled at everything she saw. The third human was a man with dark skin and alert eyes. He walked like a soldier, but his face was relaxed and friendly. Jake Morrison looked around the docking bay, then focused on the group of aliens waiting for him. His face broke into a wide smile. Hello there, he said, raising one hand in what seemed to be a greeting gesture. I'm Jake Morrison. Thank you so much for letting us come aboard. His voice was warm and genuine. There was no trace of fear or aggression in it. Zathara found herself relaxing slightly despite her concerns. I am Captain Zathara, she replied. Welcome to the Star Weaver. This is Lieutenant Amy Collins, Jake said, indicating the blonde woman. She handles our communications. And this is Sergeant Pete Williams, our security specialist. Pete Williams stepped forward and nodded politely. Thank you for having us. We know this must be strange for you. Dr. Velnara stepped closer with her scanner, trying to get better readings on the humans. Amy Collins noticed the device and looked curious. Is that some kind of medical scanner? Amy asked. That's fascinating. Our equipment is much more basic. You don't mind being scanned? Dr. Velnara asked, surprised. Not at all, Jake said. We understand you need to know we're safe. Where we come from, being careful about strangers is just common sense. Dr. Velnara ran her scans while the humans waited patiently. The readings made her scales turn pale. These beings were even more dangerous than she had thought. Their bones were like metal, their muscles like cables, and their reflexes were impossibly fast. But they just stood there smiling, waiting for her to finish. Your world, Zethara began carefully. Our records say it's classified as uninhabitable. Jake laughed. Earth can be challenging, that's true, but it's home. We've learned to work with what we have. Challenging? Yemtai repeated. Our database lists constant natural disasters, extreme weather, and deadly predators. Oh, you mean like hurricanes and earthquakes? Amy said casually. Yeah, we get those. I grew up in Florida, so I'm used to hurricane season. You just prepare for them and deal with it. The alien crew exchanged horrified looks. Hurricanes were planet-killing storms on most worlds. This human spoke about them like they were minor inconveniences. What about the predators? Crindle asked. Pete Williams shrugged. Most of them leave you alone if you don't bother them. And the ones that don't, well, that's why we learned to make tools and work together. Tools? Dr. Velnara asked. Weapons mostly, Pete said matter-of-factly. Though we use them for hunting food more than fighting predators these days. The casual mention of weapons made several crew members step back, but Pete seemed to notice their reaction and quickly added, Don't worry, we didn't bring any aboard. Your ship. We're here to make friends, not enemies. Jake looked around at the nervous faces surrounding them. I think we might be giving the wrong impression. Let me try to explain better. He gestured toward a viewing port that showed Earth's sun in the distance. Our planet taught us to be tough, yes, but it also taught us to help each other. When a storm comes, neighbors work together to get through it. When someone gets hurt, everyone helps them heal. We learned that cooperation is the only way to survive. But you said you fight each other too, Yemtai pointed out. Sometimes, Jake admitted, but usually over resources or territory, and we've gotten much better at talking things out instead of fighting. Most of us, anyway. Amy Collins had been looking around the docking bay with obvious fascination. Your technology is incredible. These force fields, the artificial gravity that adjusts automatically, the translation systems that let us understand each other perfectly. We have nothing like this. How did you achieve space travel then? Crindle asked. Very carefully, Pete said with a grin, and with a lot of backup systems. When you can't rely on your equipment being perfect, you learn to plan for everything that can go wrong. Dr. Velnara finally spoke up. According to my scans, you've been in space for 6 months. In that primitive ship. 6 months isn't too bad, Jake said. We've had longer deployments. Deployments? Zethara asked. Military missions, Pete explained. Sometimes you have to stay in difficult places for extended periods. Space is actually pretty peaceful compared to some places we've been. The aliens stared at him in shock. To them, deep space was one of the most hostile environments imaginable. The idea that these humans found it peaceful was disturbing. Amy Collins noticed their expressions and laughed. I think we're scaring them, guys. Sorry about that, Jake said. We don't mean to be frightening. We're just excited to meet you. We've been hoping to find other intelligent life for centuries. Centuries? Norabeth asked. Well, we've been wondering about it for centuries, Amy clarified. We've only been able to look for it for the past few decades. Jake looked around at the crew again. Look, I know we probably seem strange to you, but all we want is to learn about the galaxy and maybe make some friends along the way. We're explorers, not conquerors. Despite her fears, Zethara found herself believing him. There was something honest about these humans, something genuine in their curiosity and friendliness. Perhaps, she said slowly, we could continue this conversation in a more comfortable setting. Would you like a tour of our ship? Jake's face lit up. That would be amazing, thank you. As they began to walk toward the exit, Pete Williams looked back at the security setup and chuckled. "You guys really don't take chances, do you?" "We've learned to be careful," Yemtai replied stiffly. "Smart," Pete said with approval. "Careful keeps you alive." The tour of the Starweaver took 3 hours. Jake Morrison, Amy Collins, and Pete Williams asked questions about everything they saw. Their curiosity seemed endless, and their ability to understand complex systems after just one explanation amazed. The crew, Dr. Velnara, had set up her medical bay for a full examination of the humans. With Jake's permission, she ran every test she could think of. The results were beyond anything she had imagined. "Captain," she called Zethara over to look at her readings. "You need to see this." Zethara looked at the medical display and felt her blood run cold. "These numbers can't be right. I've checked them 5 times. Jake Morrison's bone density is 4 times stronger than ours. His muscle fibers are designed for incredible stress. And his immune system—" She paused, shaking her head. "He's carrying antibodies for diseases that would wipe out entire planets. How is that possible? Earth must be even worse than we thought. His body has adapted to survive things that would kill us in seconds." In the conference room, the cultural exchange continued. Amy Collins was explaining human history to an increasingly horrified audience. "The Ice Age lasted for thousands of years," she said casually. "Most of the planet was covered in ice sheets kilometers thick, but humans survived by working together and adapting." "Ice sheets kilometers thick?" Krindal repeated weakly. "That would freeze the atmosphere solid on most worlds." "It was pretty cold," Amy agreed. "But we learned to make fire, build shelters, and hunt for food even in those conditions." Pete Williams added, "That wasn't even the worst thing that happened to us. There was this asteroid impact about 65 million years ago that killed off the dinosaurs." "Dinosaurs?" Yemtai asked. "Giant reptiles. Some of them were bigger than your ship. They ruled the planet until the asteroid hit and changed the climate. The alien crew sat in stunned silence. An asteroid impact that could kill creatures the size of spaceships and change an entire planet's climate was beyond their comprehension. But life survived," Jake said. "It always does on Earth. Life finds a way to adapt and keep going no matter what happens." Norabeth managed to find her voice. "What other disasters has your world experienced?" Amy thought for a moment. "Well, there have been several mass extinctions. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years, magnetic pole reversals, climate changes that flooded continents or turned forests into deserts. And through all of this," Jake continued, "different species kept evolving and adapting. By the time humans appeared, Earth had already tested billions of different survival strategies." Dr. Velnara entered the conference room, still pale from her medical readings. "Jake, may I ask you about your physical condition?" "Sure, what would you like to know? Have you ever been seriously injured?" Jake rolled up his sleeve, showing several scars on his arm. "Broke this arm twice when I was young. Got bit by a snake once. Had surgery to remove my appendix, nothing too serious." Dr. Velnara stared at the scars. Each injury he described casually would have been fatal to most galactic species. "The snake bite," she said carefully. "What kind of snake?" "Rattlesnake. Pretty common where I grew up. The venom makes you sick, but if you get to a hospital quickly, you'll be fine." "You survived being poisoned by a predator?" "Well, yeah. We have anti-venom for most snake bites. It's not usually a big deal unless you're really far from help." "Pete," Williams laughed. "You should hear about the time Amy got caught in a riptide." "A what?" several aliens asked at once. "It's when the ocean current suddenly changes direction," Amy explained. "The water pulls you out to sea faster than you can swim back. I got pulled about a kilometer offshore before the Coast Guard found me." "You survived being dragged into an ocean by hostile currents?" Zethara asked, her voice barely a whisper. "It was scary," Amy admitted, "but I knew to swim parallel to the shore until I got out of the current, then swim back. Basic water. Safety." The aliens exchanged looks of pure terror. These humans spoke about surviving things that would be recorded as natural disasters on any civilized world. Jake noticed their expressions. I'm starting to think we might be giving you the wrong idea about Earth. It's not as dangerous as we're making it sound." "Not dangerous?" Yemtai squeaked. "Well, it can be challenging," Jake said. "But most of the time, if you're prepared and careful, you'll be fine. We've learned to predict weather patterns, avoid dangerous animals, and build structures that can survive earthquakes and storms." "What about war?" Krindal asked quietly. "Our records show humans have fought each other." The three humans grew more serious. Pete Williams answered first. "Yes, we've had wars. Too many of them. But we've also learned from them. Most of the world has been at peace for decades now." "What were the wars like?" Dr. Velnara asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "Terrible," Jake said simply. "We developed weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We fought battles that lasted for years. Millions of people died." The conference room fell silent. The idea of a species surviving on a Class 15 Deathworld and then turning their survival skills against each other was almost incomprehensible. "But that's why we're out here," Amy said softly. "We learned that fighting each other was wasteful and destructive. We decided to focus our energy on exploration and discovery instead." "You turned your weapons into tools for exploration?" Norabeth asked. "More or less," Pete said. "The rockets that brought us to space were originally designed as weapons, but we found better uses for them." Jake leaned forward. "Look, I know all of this sounds frightening, but the same things that made us tough also taught us to value cooperation and peace. When you live on a world that's constantly trying to kill you, you learn that your neighbors are your most valuable resource. We help each other," Amy added. "When disasters strike, humans from all over the world send aid. When someone makes a discovery, we share it with everyone. We learned that survival isn't about being the strongest individual, it's about being the strongest community." Dr. Velnara spoke up again. "Jake, what do you hope to accomplish out here in space?" "We want to explore, learn, and meet other intelligent species like yourselves. Earth is getting crowded, so we're also looking for new places where humans might be able to live." "New places to live?" Zethara asked. "Not to take from anyone," Jake said quickly. "We're looking for empty worlds that might be suitable for human colonies, preferably places that are already challenging, since those are the kind of environments we understand best." The aliens stared at him. The idea that anyone would voluntarily seek out challenging worlds was beyond their understanding. "What would you consider a suitable world?" Yemtai asked. Jake thought for a moment. "Well, it would need water and breathable air, some geological activity to keep the ecosystem dynamic, maybe some interesting weather patterns, a few dangerous animals to keep us alert." Pete grinned. "Basically, we want to find a planet that's like home, but maybe a little bit easier." The alien crew sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had learned. These humans had survived the impossible, turned their deadliest weapons into tools for peace, and now they were looking for more dangerous worlds to call home. And they were doing it all with genuine enthusiasm and optimism that was both inspiring and terrifying. 2 days after the first meeting, emergency signals were buzzing across the galaxy. Captain Zethara sat in her ready room, watching the stream of messages from the Galactic Council. News of the humans had spread faster than she had expected. Admiral Korath's face appeared on her screen, his scaled features showing deep concern. "Captain, I've read your reports about these humans. Are you certain about all of this?" "Yes, Admiral, everything I've reported is true. They're unlike anything we've encountered before. The Council is in emergency session. Half the species want them quarantined immediately. The other half want to study them. There's talk of classifying them as a galactic threat." Zethara felt a pang of guilt. Jake Morrison and his crew had been nothing but friendly and helpful. They didn't deserve to be treated as dangerous criminals. "Admiral, they're not hostile. They've been completely cooperative." "That might make them more dangerous, Captain. A species that can survive a Class 15 Deathworld and still appear friendly could be the most dangerous predator in the galaxy." After the call ended, Zethara walked to the observation deck where Jake Morrison was standing with Dr. Velnara. They were looking out at the stars, talking quietly about stellar formation. "The thing about stars," Jake was saying, "is that they're constantly exploding and reforming, creation and destruction happening at the same time. Kind of like life on Earth, I suppose. Dr. Velnara nodded thoughtfully. Over the past 2 days, she had grown less afraid of the humans and more fascinated by them. Jake, may I ask you something personal? Of course. When you were young, did you ever think about how dangerous your world was? Jake smiled. Not really. When you grow up somewhere, it just seems normal. I knew there were risks, but there are risks everywhere. The key is learning to manage them, Nidge. But didn't the constant danger make your people aggressive or fearful? Sometimes, Jake admitted, but mostly it made us careful and cooperative. When you might face a hurricane or earthquake at any time, you learn to help your neighbors. You prepare together, and you recover together. Dr. Velnara was about to ask another question when Amy Collins joined them on the deck. She was carrying a small device that she had been working on. Jake, I think I've figured out their communication system, Amy said excitedly. It's incredibly sophisticated. They can talk to ships across the entire galaxy instantly. That's amazing, Jake replied. Our radio signals take years to travel between planets. Amy looked at Dr. Velnara. Would it be possible for us to send a message to Earth? Just to let them know we're safe and that we've made contact? Dr. Velnara hesitated. The request seemed innocent enough, but she wasn't sure about the protocols for the situation. I'll have to ask the captain, she said. Later that day, Pete Williams was in the ship's gymnasium with several of the crew members. They had been curious about human physical capabilities, so Pete had offered to demonstrate. Crindall watched in amazement as Pete lifted weights that would have crushed most aliens. How is this possible? He asked. Just normal training, Pete said, setting down the weights. On Earth, most people exercise regularly to stay healthy. Physical fitness is important when you might need to run from a storm or help someone who's injured. This is normal for humans? Yemtai asked. More or less, I'm probably in better shape than average because of my military training, but not by much. Norabeth had been watching quietly. Pete, when you were in the military, what did you do? Mostly peacekeeping operations, making sure civilians were safe during conflicts, providing security for aid workers, that sort of thing. Have you ever been in actual combat? Pete's expression grew more serious. A few times. It's not something I enjoy talking about. Were you afraid? Of course. Fear keeps you alive in dangerous situations. The trick is not letting it control you. The aliens looked at each other nervously. The idea that Pete Williams, who seemed so calm and friendly, was also a trained warrior was deeply unsettling. Meanwhile, in the ship's engineering section, Amy Collins was having a discussion with Chief Engineer Talmor about the Starweaver's power systems. Your fusion reactors are incredibly efficient, Amy said, studying the schematics. We're still using much more primitive designs. These are standard throughout the galaxy, Talmor replied. Nothing special. Maybe not to you, but to us, this is incredible technology. Though I notice you have some redundancy issues in your power distribution. Redundancy issues. Amy pointed to several areas on the schematic. If this primary conduit fails, you lose power to half the ship. On Earth, we learn to build multiple backup systems for everything critical. Why would you need so many backups? Because things break down, especially in harsh conditions. If your life support system fails during a hurricane, you don't get a second chance. Talmor studied the areas Amy had indicated. She was right. The ship's power systems had single points of failure that could be catastrophic. Could you suggest improvements? He asked. I'd be happy to help, Amy said with a smile. That evening, Captain Zethara called a meeting with her senior staff. The humans had been invited to dinner, but first, she needed to discuss the situation with her crew. I've been in contact with the Galactic Council, she began. They want us to escort the human ship to Terminus Station for formal evaluation. Is that wise? Yemtai asked. Bringing them to a major hub station? The Council believes it's necessary. They need to determine how to classify humanity and what their role in galactic society might be. Dr. Velnara spoke up. Captain, I've been studying them for 2 days now. They're not the monsters we initially thought. They're genuinely peaceful and curious people. But they're also incredibly dangerous, Crindall pointed out. Their physical capabilities alone make them formidable. Dangerous and formidable aren't the same as hostile, Norabeth said. They haven't shown any aggressive behavior. That's what worries some council members, Zathara replied. A species capable of violence but smart enough to hide it. The dinner that followed was awkward. The humans sensed the tension among the crew, though they didn't understand the cause. Is everything all right? Jake asked during the meal. You all seem worried about something. Zathara decided to be honest. Jake, the Galactic Council has asked us to escort you to Terminus Station. It's a major hub where they can properly evaluate your species' place in galactic society. That sounds interesting, Jake said. We'd be honored to meet more species and learn about the galactic community. You're not concerned about being evaluated? Yemtai asked. Pete Williams laughed. We've been evaluated by hostile forces before. At least you're being polite about it. Besides, Amy added, we want to be good neighbors. If there are procedures we need to follow, we're happy to cooperate. Their easy acceptance of what could be a dangerous situation only reinforced the crew's mixed feelings about the humans. Were they incredibly brave, completely naive, or something else entirely? After dinner, Jake Morrison found Captain Zathara on the bridge. Captain, I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for us. I know this situation must be difficult for you. Jake, can I ask you something? Aren't you worried about what might happen at Terminus Station? Some species might see you as a threat. Jake considered this for a moment. We've always known that first contact would be complicated, but hiding won't solve anything. If we want to be part of the galactic community, we need to prove we can be trusted. And if some species decide you're too dangerous to trust, then we'll deal with that when it happens. But I believe most intelligent beings want the same things we do: peace, security, and the chance to build something better for their children. Zathara looked at this human who spoke so calmly about facing potential hostility from an entire galaxy. How can you be so optimistic? Jake smiled. Because pessimism never solved any problems. On Earth, we learned that you can either spend your time worrying about what might go wrong, or you can spend it preparing for whatever comes next. We prefer to prepare. As the Starweaver changed course for Terminus Station, Captain Zathara wondered if the galaxy was ready for humanity. More importantly, she wondered if humanity was ready for the galaxy. Terminus Station was the largest structure Jake Morrison had ever seen. The massive space station stretched for kilometers in every direction, with ships from dozens of different species docked at its many ports. As the New Horizon approached, under escort from the Starweaver, Jake felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Look at the size of that thing, Amy Collins said from the pilot's seat. It must house millions of beings. Pete Williams checked his instruments. Multiple defense platforms, energy shields, and weapon systems. They're definitely taking security seriously. Can you blame them? Jake replied. From their perspective, we're complete unknowns from an impossible world. The docking process took 2 hours. Station security had cleared an entire section just for the human ship. As Jake, Amy, and Pete prepared to disembark, they could see crowds of aliens gathering behind transparent barriers to get a look at them. Captain Zathara met them at the airlock. The Council is ready to see you, but first, there's been an incident. What kind of incident? Jake asked. One of the station's diplomatic staff accidentally injured himself while preparing for your arrival. His name is Tony, and he's from the crystalline species. The medical team wants to treat him, but they're concerned about contamination protocols. They followed Zathara through the station corridors. Everywhere they went, aliens stopped what they were doing to stare. Some looked curious, others appeared frightened, and a few seemed hostile. In the medical bay, they found a tall, crystalline being lying on a treatment table. His arm was cracked and leaking a blue fluid. The medical team stood around him looking worried. The problem, Dr. Velnara explained, is that Tony accidentally cut himself on a piece of equipment while setting up the meeting room. But the cut happened when he was holding a data pad with information about human biology. There might be contamination. Tony looked up weakly as they approached. "I am sorry for causing trouble," he said in a voice like wind chimes. "I was excited to meet the humans and was not being careful." Jake stepped forward without hesitation. "Don't worry about it. Accidents happen. Can I take a look?" The medical team backed away nervously as Jake examined the crack in Tony's crystalline arm. "This doesn't look too serious. On Earth, we'd call this similar to a cut that needs stitches." "You have experience with this kind of injury?" one of the doctors asked. "Not exactly like this, but I've treated plenty of cuts and broken bones. The principles are probably similar." Amy Collins had been scanning the area with a small device. "Jake, I'm not detecting any dangerous contamination. The data pad just has basic biological information on it." Pete Williams looked at the crowd of nervous medical staff. "You know, where we come from, when someone gets hurt, the first thing you do is help them. Everything else can wait." Jake knelt down next to Tony. "Is it okay if I touch your arm? I want to see if we can stabilize the crack." Tony nodded weakly. Jake carefully examined the damaged area, then looked around the medical bay. "Do you have anything like surgical glue or sealant?" One of the doctors handed him a device. "This creates molecular bonds in crystalline structures." "Perfect." Jake worked carefully, sealing the crack while talking to Tony in a calm, reassuring voice. "So you were setting up for our meeting? That was very kind of you. I have studied your species since the reports came in," Tony said, his voice growing stronger as the sealant took effect. "You are fascinating, a species that survived what should have been impossible." "We just did what we had to do," Jake replied, finishing his work. "There, that should hold until your doctors can do a proper repair." Dr. Velnara ran a scanner over Tony's arm. "The seal is perfect, the fracture is completely stabilized." Tony sat up slowly, testing his repaired arm. "It feels much better. Thank you." The crowd in the medical bay had grown larger. Word was spreading throughout the station that the humans had just casually treated an injured alien using unfamiliar medical techniques. "You fixed him like it was nothing," one of the doctors said in amazement. "Basic first aid," Pete said with a shrug. "When you live on a dangerous world, everyone learns how to treat injuries." An hour later, Jake Morrison stood before the full Galactic Council. Representatives from over 50 species filled the massive chamber, their attention focused entirely on him. Amy and Pete flanked him on either side, while Captain Zethara and her crew watched from the gallery. Council leader Vexhan, an ancient being with silver skin and multiple eyes, spoke first. "Jake Morrison of Earth, you stand before the Galactic Council as a representative of humanity. We must determine your species' place in our community." "Thank you for this opportunity," Jake replied. "We're honored to be here. Some of our members believe humanity poses a threat to galactic peace. Your species evolved on a world that should have killed any intelligent life. You possess physical capabilities that exceed our strongest warriors. You have weapons that could devastate planets." Jake nodded. "All of that is true. But we're not here to threaten anyone. We're here to learn and to help, if we can." A representative from the Valdorian hegemony stood up. "How can we trust beings from a death world? Your very existence proves you are killers." "Our existence proves we're survivors," Amy corrected. "There's a difference." Pete Williams stepped forward. "If you want to judge us by our capacity for violence, that's your choice. But you should also judge us by how we choose to use that capacity." Council leader Vexhan leaned forward. "Explain." "We could have come to the galaxy as conquerors," Jake said. "With our technology and physical abilities, we probably could have taken what we wanted by force. Instead, we came as explorers, looking for friends and knowledge." "But what do you want from us?" another representative asked. Jake thought for a moment before answering. "We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Earth taught us that survival depends on cooperation. We want to cooperate with the galaxy." "And what can you offer in return?" Amy Collins spoke up. "We can go places you can't. We can survive in environments that would kill other species. We can solve problems that might seem impossible to beings from safer worlds. For example, Vexahan asked. Pete Williams looked around the chamber. We heard rumors about something called the Void Plague affecting Outer Rim worlds. Most species avoid those areas because they're too dangerous. For us, dangerous is just another word for interesting. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. The Void Plague was indeed spreading through the galaxy's most hostile regions, and no one had found a way to stop it. Jake continued. We're not saying we have all the answers, but we have experience dealing with things that seem impossible. If there are problems in the galaxy that need solving, especially in dangerous places, we'd like to help. Council Leader Vexhan was quiet for a long moment. You would voluntarily enter hostile territory to help species you've never met? If they needed help, yes, Jake said simply. That's what neighbors do. The voting took 3 hours. Representatives argued, debated, and consulted with their homeworlds. When it was over, Council Leader Vexahan announced the decision. By a narrow majority, the Galactic Council accepts humanity as a provisional member of our community. You will be granted access to galactic trade routes, communication networks, and diplomatic channels. Jake felt a surge of relief and excitement. Thank you. We won't let you down. However, Vexhan continued, your species will be classified as specialized emergency responders. When the galaxy faces crises in hostile environments, humanity will be called upon to help. Amy Collins grinned. So you want us to be the galaxy's emergency services for dangerous situations? In simple terms, yes. Pete Williams laughed. Sounds like exactly the kind of job humans would be good at. As they left the council chambers, Jake Morrison felt a sense of completion. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not as conquerors or outcasts, but as the beings willing to go where others couldn't. Captain Zathara caught up with them in the corridor. So what happens now? Now we go home and tell Earth the good news, Jake said, and then we get ready to help our new neighbors with whatever they need. Even if it's dangerous? Jake smiled. Especially if it's dangerous. After all, that's what we do best. As the New Horizon prepared to depart Terminus Station, it was no longer alone. 3 ships from different species had volunteered to accompany the humans back to Earth, eager to learn more about the beings who had turned survival into an art form. For the first time in galactic history, a Class 15 Deathworld would receive official diplomatic visitors. And somehow, everyone involved was looking forward to the experience.